Widow accepts an abandoned ranch as payment. But upon entering the barn, everything changes. Grace Mitchell squinted her swollen eyes from so much crying as she rocked the baby in her arms. Her 3 youngest children clung to her simple dress, all hungry and with nowhere to sleep that night. The eviction had been brutal and final. It was then that Raymond Parker appeared at the cheap boarding house where she had found temporary shelter. The burly man with a leather hat and dirty boots said he had a proposal that would change everything. "Mrs. Grace, I knew your husband, Daniel. A good man, a hard worker. Before he passed, he helped me with some problems on the farm. I owe you a debt." Grace lifted her tired eyes. Daniel had never mentioned this man, but perhaps there were so many things about his work she didn't know. "What kind of debt?" she asked, suspicious. "I have a ranch that's been sitting idle for years. Good land, a big house, a spacious barn. It's a bit run down, but nothing that can't be fixed. I want to give it to you as payment for what I owe Daniel." The widow's eyes widened. It seemed too good to be true. "Are you serious?" "More serious than a politician's promise during election season," Raymond laughed, showing yellowed teeth. "I just need you to take care of the property, make it productive again. What do you think?" Grace looked at her children. Brandon, 12 years old, stared at her with suspicion. Emily, 8 years old, held the hand of her twin brother Tyler. In her arms, little Noah, just 2 years old, drooled on her shoulder. "Where is this property?" "In the interior of Kansas, the Fredericksburg area. A quiet place, clean air, ideal for raising the boys. I can take you there tomorrow to see it." The offer sounded like an answer to her prayers. After 3 weeks sleeping in cheap boarding houses and eating the bare minimum, any prospect of stability seemed like a miracle. "I can't pay rent or installments," she warned honestly. "I'm not charging anything. It's a gift, a way to settle my debt with your husband. I just want you to be happy there." Brandon tugged on the hem of his mother's dress. "Mom, can I talk to you?" he whispered. Grace excused herself from Raymond and stepped away with her eldest son. "What is it, my son?" "That man is strange, Mom. Dad never talked about him. And nobody just gives away a property for free like that. Brandon, we're desperate. We have no choice." "I have a bad feeling. We can look for work in the city. I can help." Grace stroked the boy's face. At 12, he was already trying to take on adult responsibilities. "Let's at least go see the place. If we don't like it, we come back." Brandon didn't seem convinced, but nodded reluctantly. The next day, Raymond arrived with an old but sturdy pickup truck. The journey lasted 3 hours along increasingly isolated dirt roads. The children dozed in the back seat, while Grace watched the landscape transform from urban to completely rural. "Your husband was a man of his word," Raymond commented during the trip. "When he promised something, he delivered. I hope you've inherited that trait." "Daniel was always honest," Grace confirmed. "He worked as a bricklayer and never left a job half-finished." "Well, that's exactly what he did for me. He renovated the entire structure of my main house. Impeccable work." Grace tried to remember Daniel mentioning this job but couldn't. Perhaps it had been in the last few months, when he was always tired and spoke little at home. The property appeared on the horizon like a mirage, a large house of exposed brick, a wide porch, a wild garden that had once been well kept. In the background, an imposing dark wood barn stood out against the golden landscape of the plains. "Wow," whispered Emily, waking up and rubbing her eyes. "It's like a castle." Raymond parked in front of the house and everyone got out. The place had a deep silence, broken only by the wind rustling the branches of the fruit trees around. The house has 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a large kitchen with a wood and gas stove. The water comes from an artesian well. The electricity is working. You're going to love it. Grace carried Noah in her arms and followed Raymond around the property. The house was truly spacious and well-maintained, much better than she expected for something abandoned. The furniture was covered in dusty sheets, but it seemed of good quality. "Why did the previous owner leave?" asked Brandon, always suspicious. "William? Oh, he decided to change his life. He went to the capital to try other businesses, left everything behind." The answer sounded vague, but Grace was too enchanted to question it. The bedrooms were spacious, with large windows that filled the rooms with natural light. The kitchen had enough space for the whole family to gather. And the land, can we plant? Of course, it's almost 50 acres. Fertile soil, ideal for corn, beans, vegetables. The barn over there has all the necessary tools. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. "Can I see the barn?" asked Grace. Raymond hesitated for an almost imperceptible moment. "Sure, but it's a bit messy." William left things somewhat scattered. They walked toward the barn, a sturdy structure with double wooden doors. Raymond pushed one of the doors, which groaned on rusty hinges. The interior was plunged into gloom, with rays of sunlight filtering through the gaps between the planks. Grace made out shapes covered by tarps and a smell of oil and iron in the air. "Those are the farming equipment," Raymond explained quickly. "Tractor, plow, those things. All working, just need a cleaning." Grace approached one of the tarps and lifted it partially. Underneath was a tractor that looked almost new, its red paint still shiny. "That tractor doesn't look like it's been abandoned for years," observed Brandon, always attentive. "Yeah, William took good care of the machines. He was meticulous about those things." Grace continued exploring and found organized farm implements, clean tools, and even seeds stored in airtight containers. Everything indicated the property had been active until very recently. "Raymond, are you sure this place has been abandoned for years?" "Everything is very well kept." "Well, William came here from time to check on things, but he didn't plant anything, just kept things organized." The explanation didn't fully convince her, but the opportunity was unique. Where else would they get a house and land for free? "If we decide to stay, when can we move in?" "Today, if you want. I have the keys and all the documentation. You just need to sign some papers to formalize the transfer." Brandon pulled his mother aside. "Mom, this isn't right. Nobody gives away a property like this, out of nowhere. And this man keeps changing his story about the previous owner. Brandon, we have no choice. Either we accept this opportunity, or we go back to the boarding house without knowing how we'll pay for a few more days." "I prefer the boarding house. At least there, I know what to expect." Grace sighed. Her eldest son's resistance was making everything more difficult, but she understood his suspicion. In the last few months since their father left, Brandon had prematurely become the man of the house. "Let's try it for a few days. If it doesn't work out, we'll look for another solution. Do you promise that if I prove there's something wrong here, we'll leave?" "I promise." Raymond approached, noticing the conversation. "So what have you decided?" "We'll stay," replied Grace, "but I need to better understand the transfer papers." "It's simple. William left a power of attorney authorizing me to dispose of the property as I wished. Since he owes me money and can't pay, I'm transferring the debt to you in the form of property." The explanation sounded legal, but Brandon rolled his eyes, clearly dissatisfied. "Can I see this power of attorney?" "Of course, it's in my car. I'll go get it." Raymond left the barn and Grace took the opportunity to explore a bit more. There was a small office at the back of the barn, with a wooden desk and dusty files. She opened one of the drawers and found papers with the name William Anderson, receipts for farm sales dated just 3 months ago. "Mom, look at this." Brandon had found a calendar on the wall. "There are notes up until last month. Plant corn, fix fence, meeting with neighbors." The evidence contradicted Raymond's version about the property being abandoned. Grace put one of the receipts in her bag, determined to investigate further later. Raymond returned with a folder of documents. "Here's everything. Power of attorney, property deeds, and the transfer papers for you to sign." Grace examined the documents. Everything looked official, with stamps and notarized signatures. But one clause caught her attention. "In case of pending regularization, the beneficiary assumes all legal and financial responsibilities." What does this clause mean? It's just a standard legal term. It means you are responsible for the property from now on. Taxes, maintenance, those normal things. The explanation seemed reasonable, but something in Raymond's tone bothered her. Even so, she signed the papers. The alternative was to return to the uncertainty of the city. After Raymond left, promising to return in a few days to see how they were settling in, the family was alone on the property. The silence was almost deafening after the constant noise of the city. Emily and Tyler ran through the rooms of the house, delighted with so much space. Noah crawled on the wide plank floor, drooling with joy. Only Brandon remained sullen. "Mum, you need to see something." He led her to the back porch, from where a dirt road could be seen in the distance. "I saw recent tire marks there at the entrance. Someone was here today before we arrived." Grace looked in the direction indicated, and there were indeed fresh vehicle tracks. It must have been Raymond, preparing the house for our arrival. Or someone who shouldn't be here. "Mom, promise me you'll investigate this story properly." "I promise. Now let's tidy up the house and try to make this work." They spent the rest of the day discovering the property's secrets. The pantry was stocked with non-perishable goods, the refrigerator worked perfectly, and there was cut firewood for the stove. It seemed as if someone had prepared everything for their arrival, which was strange considering Raymond said the decision had been spontaneous. That night, gathered in the kitchen for their first meal in the new house, Grace tried to cheer up the children. "Tomorrow we'll explore the whole property. You can choose where you want to play, and we can start a vegetable garden." "Can I climb the mango tree?" asked Emily excitedly. "Can we build a treehouse?" added Tyler. "Let's see what's possible," smiled Grace, feeling a bit of hope for the first time in weeks. Brandon remained quiet, playing distractedly with the food on his plate. "Brandon, aren't you happy here?" "Not yet, Mom. Something doesn't add up in this whole story." "Give the place a chance. Maybe you'll change your mind." During the night, Grace was awakened by noises coming from the barn. They were metallic sounds, as if someone was handling tools. She got up slowly and went to the bedroom window. The moon was full and illuminated the property well, but she saw no one. The noises stopped when she turned on the bedroom light. She decided to check in the morning for any signs of intrusion. The first dawn at the ranch was magical. The sun rose golden over the prairie, birds sang in the trees, and the air was pure and fresh. The children woke up excited and ran to the porch to see the landscape. "Mom, it's like we're rich," exclaimed Emily. Grace smiled, feeling they might have truly found a new home. But as she headed to the barn to check on the noises from the previous night, she found disturbing evidence. Several tarps were out of place, tools had been moved, and there were boot prints in the dusty ground, prints that definitely weren't from her family. "Brandon," she called her son, "come see this." The boy examined the footprints and the disarranged tools. Someone was here last night, and judging by the footprints, they know the barn well. It could have been Raymond checking if everything is in order. Or it could have been the real owner of the property who doesn't know we were gifted his house. The possibility haunted Grace. What if Raymond didn't have the right to donate the property? What if they were illegally occupying someone else's land? "Let's look for more information about this William. Maybe someone in the nearby town knows him." "Good idea, but first, how about we lock the barn at night? If someone comes back, at least we'll know." Grace agreed. They found an old chain and a functional padlock in one of the barn drawers. At night, they locked everything up and returned to the house. Around midnight, they were awakened by the sound of someone trying to force the padlock. Grace grabbed a flashlight and cautiously approached the window. She saw the silhouette of a man fiddling with the barn door. "Brandon, wake up," she whispered. "There's someone out there." The boy joined her at the window. The man had given up on the padlock and was walking around the barn, apparently looking for another entrance. "It must be William," whispered Brandon. "The real owner came back." The man seemed to hear something and looked toward the house. Grace quickly turned off the flashlight, but she could swear he had seen her at the window. After standing still for a few minutes, watching the house, the man walked away and disappeared into the darkness. "Mom, I need to talk to you," said Brandon, serious. "This can't go on like this. We are intruders in someone else's house." "We are not intruders. We have the documents." "Documents that could be fake. This Raymond might have used us to occupy a property that isn't his." The possibility was terrifying. If it were true, they could face legal charges and be evicted again, only this time in an isolated region. "Tomorrow we go to the nearest town. We'll find out the truth about William and this property." The next day they left the younger children playing in the yard under Brandon's care and headed to the town of St. Anthony Springs, 15 kilometers from the property. The town was small, typical of the Kansas countryside, with a main street, a few shops, and many people who seemed to have known each other for generations. Grace decided to start at the bakery, where local information always circulated. "Good morning. I'm new to the area and I'm looking for information about a man named William Anderson." The baker, a woman in her 60s with a flowery apron, looked up curiously. "William from the ranch down at the end of the road? Of course I know him. Why are you looking for him?" "I'm living on his property now. A man named Raymond Parker told me William had abandoned the place." The baker's expression changed completely. "Abandoned? That's absurd. William was here last week buying supplies. He always comes here. He's one of our best customers." Grace's heart raced. "Are you sure it was last week?" "Absolutely. In fact, he asked if I knew of any family that had moved to the area. He said he had seen activity on his property." The situation was becoming a nightmare. Grace thanked him and left the bakery with her mind in a whirl. If William was active in the area and hadn't abandoned the property, what exactly had Raymond done? How had he gotten the transfer documents? And more importantly, was she a victim or an accomplice to some crime? Back at the property, she found Brandon waiting with a grave expression. "Mom, something happened while you were out." "What was it?" "A woman showed up here. Elderly, said she lives on the neighboring property. She asked if we knew William and if we knew when he'd be back." "What did you say?" "I said we were new here and didn't know anyone, but she got suspicious. She asked who gave us permission to live here. The situation was getting complicated quickly. The neighborhood clearly knew William and expected him to return. How would they explain their presence there?" "Where are Emily and Tyler?" "Playing in the backyard. They didn't hear the conversation." "Brandon, I found out in town that William didn't abandon the property. He's active in the area and buying groceries regularly." The boy's face paled. "So we really are trespassers. Or we were deceived by Raymond. I need to understand what really happened." At that moment, they heard the sound of a vehicle approaching. Through the window, they saw an unfamiliar pickup truck coming up the road toward the house. "It must be the neighbor with her husband," Grace sighed. "We're going to have to give explanations." But it wasn't the neighbor. A man of about 45, with a tan complexion and wearing rural work clothes, got out of the vehicle. He looked around with the expression of someone who recognizes every detail of the place. "William?" whispered Brandon. The man approached the porch where Grace waited with her heart pounding. "Good afternoon. I'm William Anderson, the owner of this property. Can you explain what you're doing here?" Grace took a deep breath. The moment of truth had arrived. "Mr. William, my name is Grace Mitchell. I received this property as a donation from a man named Raymond Parker, who said he had a debt with my late husband. I have the transfer documents." William looked at her in disbelief. "Raymond Parker? And what debt was that?" "He said my husband, Daniel, had done some renovations on his house and that this property was the payment." "Mrs. Grace, I know Raymond Parker. He's a land grabber, an expert at appropriating other people's land. I never had any debt with him, and I certainly never authorized any transfer." Grace's world collapsed. She had been used in a land-grabbing scam. "Mr. William, I swear I didn't know anything. He showed me documents that looked official. May I see those documents?" Grace brought the folder Raymond had left. William examined each paper with growing attention. "This power of attorney is forged. My signature is completely wrong and I would never authorize anyone to dispose of my property." "So we were deceived," said Brandon, stepping closer. "Not just deceived. You were used as fronts. Raymond must have chosen you because you're a vulnerable family, without the means to investigate the situation. The idea was to leave you here for a while and then buy the property from you for a pittance." The explanation made sense. Raymond had taken advantage of their desperation to carry out a land appropriation scheme. "Mr. William, what's going to happen now?" asked Grace, fearing the answer. William observed the family. Grace with the baby in her arms, Brandon protecting his younger siblings, all clearly in a state of need. "Well, you are victims just as much as I am. Raymond deceived us all. I'm not going to kick you out like criminals. But this is your property. We have to leave." "Wait a moment. Let me understand the situation better. You really have nowhere to go? Grace told him about the eviction, her widowhood, the struggle to find housing and work with 4 small children. William listened to her in silence, nodding his head with understanding. Look, I have a proposal. This property is too big for me to manage alone. How about we make a temporary arrangement? You help me with the land, and I provide housing for the family. The offer seemed too generous. Are you sure, sir? I am. Since my wife passed away 2 years ago, I've been running this place alone. It's too much work for one person. A hard-working family would be a blessing. Brandon, always suspicious, questioned, "What about Raymond? He won't cause trouble?" "Raymond is a problem that needs to be solved. He can't keep appropriating other people's properties, but that's not your responsibility." Grace felt relieved, but also worried. She was trading one dependency for another, and she didn't know if William would be as generous as he seemed. "May I ask a question? Why are you being so kind to us?" William smiled sadly. "Because I know what it's like to be alone and without prospects. When my wife left, I almost gave up on everything. Solidarity was what saved me. Now it's my turn to help." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. "But we need to be clear that this is a partnership, not charity," William added. "You work and I provide housing and a share of the produce. It's fair for everyone." The proposal sounded honest, and William seemed sincere. Grace accepted the agreement, feeling she had finally found a real opportunity to rebuild her life. In the following days, William proved to be a fair boss and a considerate neighbor. He taught Grace about farming, showed her the best areas for planting, and helped organize the property's production. Brandon, initially resistant, began to admire William's knowledge and his patience in teaching. Emily and Tyler loved having an Uncle William who told stories and taught them about the local animals. But the peace didn't last long. A week later, Raymond showed up at the property unannounced, finding William and Grace working together in the garden. "William, what are you doing here?" "The question is, what are you doing on my property, Raymond?" "Your property?" "But I transferred it to the Mitchell family. I have the documents." "Forged documents. I never authorized any transfer." The tension in the air was palpable. Raymond looked from William to Grace, trying to understand the situation. "Grace, you didn't tell me you knew the previous owner." "Because I didn't. I only found out the documents were fake when Mr. William showed up here." "Fake? Impossible. I have his power of attorney signed at the notary." "A power of attorney you forged yourself," accused William. "I know your methods, Raymond. You've tried this on other properties in the area." Raymond was visibly bothered by the accusation. "William, you're mistaken. Everything was done legally. If there's a problem, it was a misunderstanding." "The misunderstanding was me not reporting your practices sooner, but this ends here." "Grace," Raymond addressed her directly, "you have legal rights to this property. Don't let him intimidate you." The situation was becoming a tug-of-war, with Grace in the middle. She didn't want confrontation, just a safe place to raise her children. "Raymond, we discovered the documents really were fake. I don't want anything more to do with this transfer." "You're making a mistake. I have contacts who can guarantee your rights. Don't accept being thrown out like this." William intervened firmly. "Raymond, the family stays on the property because I authorized it. They are my partners now, not your fronts." "Partners?" Raymond laughed sarcastically. "William, you've always been naive. This woman might be pretending to be a victim to get your land." The accusation deeply offended Grace. "How dare you? I didn't even want to accept your offer. It was my son who said something was wrong." "Calm down." William put his hand on Grace's shoulder. "Raymond is trying to divide us. It's a tactic of his. William, you'll regret this decision. There are greater interests involved in this property than you can imagine." "What interests?" "Forget it. But don't say you weren't warned." Raymond left with this vague threat, leaving William and Grace worried. What greater interests could these be? And what would Raymond's next move be? That night, William talked with the family about the possible risks. "Raymond doesn't give up easily. He'll probably try other tactics to get this property." "Why does he want this land so much?" asked Brandon. Good question. This region is being valued because of development projects. Maybe he knows something we don't. What kind of development? Inquired Grace. There are rumors about a highway that will pass through here, connecting Washington, D.C. to the interior of Kansas. Properties along the highway route will become very valuable. The information explained Raymond's interest, but also created new fears. If the property was truly valuable, he wouldn't give up easily. Mr. William, maybe it's better if we leave. We don't want to cause problems for you. Absolutely not. You are victims just as much as I am. And besides, I need allies to face Raymond. Allies? He's trying to appropriate several properties in the area. Alone, we are weak. United, we can face him. The idea of fighting Raymond frightened Grace. But William was right. Running away wouldn't solve the problem, it would only transfer it to other victims. In the following days, William introduced Grace to the neighbors, telling the story of how Raymond had tried to use the family in the scam. The community's reaction was one of solidarity and indignation. "This Raymond is getting shameless," commented Mrs. Dorothy, the elderly neighbor who had appeared at the property. "He's already tried to buy my land for a ridiculous price 3 times. "And what did you say?" asked Grace. "That I'd rather die on my land than sell it to him. My late husband sweated blood to get those acres." Other neighbors had similar stories. Raymond was systematically trying to acquire properties in the region, using methods ranging from laughable offers to questionable documentation. "We need to organize," suggested William. "If he's after several properties, he probably has some big project in mind." "What kind of project?" asked one of the neighbors. "I don't know, but we'll find out." William proposed forming a rural landowners association to protect everyone's rights. The idea was well received, and Grace offered to help with the documentation, using her experience as an administrative assistant. While the adults discussed strategies, the children adapted well to rural life. Brandon proved skillful with farm machinery, Emily loved taking care of the chickens, and Tyler showed a talent for the vegetable garden. Even little Noah seemed healthier with the fresh country air. 2 weeks later, the first association meeting took place at William's property. 15 families attended, all with stories of pressure from Raymond or his representatives. "The situation is more serious than we thought," revealed William, based on the information gathered. "Raymond isn't working alone. There's a business group behind him." "What kind of group?" asked Mrs. Dorothy. "It seems to be a consortium interested in developing the region. They want to consolidate several properties for a big project." "Legal or illegal?" questioned another landowner. "That's the problem. If it were legal, they wouldn't need questionable methods to acquire the land." Grace was noting everything down, organizing the information into a dossier that could be used as evidence if needed. "Mrs. Grace, could you investigate more about this consortium? With your administrative experience, you might uncover information we've missed." The responsibility frightened her, but Grace agreed. It was her way of repaying the community's solidarity. In the following days, she visited county clerk's offices, town halls, and real estate offices in the area, gathering information about recent property transfers. What she discovered was alarming. Several properties had been transferred in the last 6 months to a company called Midwest Rural Development LLC, always using powers of attorney and documentation that seemed questionable. "William, I found the company behind Raymond." She showed the certificates she had copied at the clerk's offices. The company was headquartered in Washington, D.C., and had significant capital, but its partners were not known in the region. "Interesting. And what do they want to do with all this land?" "I haven't found out yet, but there's a pattern. All the properties are along the route of the future highway. So it's real estate speculation after all. They buy cheap now and sell high when the highway is built." The conclusion made sense, but it didn't explain the urgency and the questionable methods. "There's one more thing," Grace continued. "I discovered the company is a service provider for a larger construction company specialized in infrastructure projects. So they're not just speculating. They might have insider information about the highway, and perhaps even influence to speed up or modify the project. The discovery changed everything. They weren't just dealing with land grabbing, but possibly with corruption involving public works." "This is much bigger than we can handle alone," William worried. But we can't give up. If they manage to take over all the properties, they'll destroy our community. Grace's determination surprised even herself. 2 months ago, she was a desperate widow accepting any help. Now she was willing to fight a corruption scheme. In the middle of her investigations, she received an unexpected visit. Raymond showed up at the property with 2 men in suits, clearly urban and out of place in the rural setting. "Grace, these are legal representatives of the company that will develop this region. They have a proposal that might interest you." Grace called William, who was working in the vegetable garden. He came with his hands dirty from soil, contrasting with the impeccably dressed visitors. "Mr. William, Mr. Grace," said one of the men, ignoring the fact she was Mrs. "We represent Midwest Rural Development. We know there are some misunderstandings about the property, but we can resolve everything amicably." "What kind of resolution, Bate?" asked William. "We are prepared to buy the property for a price well above market value, 300,000 rees cash." The offer was tempting. 300,000 rees would solve all the financial problems for both families. "And if we refuse?" questioned Grace. "Well, there are some irregularities in the documentation that could be investigated by the proper authorities. It would be unpleasant for everyone involved." The veiled threat was clear. "Accept the offer or face legal problems." "We need to think," said William. "Of course, but don't take too long. Our patience has limits." After the men left, William and Grace gathered with the children to discuss the situation. "Mum, 300,000 reals is a lot of money," Brandon pondered. "We could buy a house in the city and still have money left to start over." "But here we are building something real," Grace countered. "A life, a community, a future. What if they carry out their threats? We could lose everything and still have legal problems." Brandon's concern was legitimate. Fighting a powerful consortium could be financial and legal suicide. "Mr. William, what do you think?" "I think they're scared. If their offer were legitimate, they wouldn't need threats. And 300,000 is too much money for a simple rural property." "What does that mean?" "That this land is worth much more than we think. Maybe they know something about the highway that we don't." The observation made sense. If the property was worth 300,000 to them, it was probably worth much more in the future. "So, we refuse the offer?" "We refuse and prepare for war." The decision was made, but Grace knew the consequences would be unpredictable. That night, she gathered the children for a frank conversation. "Kids, you know our situation might get difficult. If you want to leave, I understand." Brandon answered for everyone. "Mom, here we have a family. William treats us like his own children. The neighbors welcomed us. We have a real home. It's worth fighting for." The maturity of her 12-year-old son moved Grace. He had grown a lot in recent months. "Then we'll fight together." "Together," Emily and Tyler agreed in unison. In the following days, the pressure increased. Inspectors showed up at the property, claiming anonymous reports of environmental irregularities. City Hall employees questioned operating permits. The electricity had mysterious problems that took a long time to resolve. "They're trying to wear us down," William analyzed. "They want us to give up from exhaustion." "It's working," Grace admitted. "I'm tired of fighting." "But it's working for them, too. Every day we resist, the more nervous they get." The comment cheered Grace up. If the consortium was intensifying the pressure, it meant their resistance was bothering them. A week later, they received a visit that would change everything. An elegant woman, about 50 years old, appeared at the property driving an expensive car. "Good afternoon. I'm attorney Jennifer Collins, a lawyer specializing in agricultural law. May I speak with you?" William and Grace exchanged glances, suspicious. "Another representative from the consortium? I represent a group of small landowners who are facing problems similar to yours in other regions of the state." The explanation eased the tension a little. "What kind of problems?" "Pressure to sell properties, questionable documentation, veiled threats, the same pattern you're facing here." "And what do you want?" "To help you defend yourselves. This consortium is operating in several regions simultaneously. If we get enough evidence, we can report them to the proper authorities." The offer seemed too good to be true. "How much does this help cost?" "Nothing. I work pro bono on cases of social interest. My compensation comes when we win and secure punitive damages. William remained cautious. How do we know you don't work for the consortium trying to find out our strategies? Good question, the lawyer smiled. Here are some favorable court decisions I've won against similar companies. She showed a folder with authentic legal documents. The cases were real and the victories significant. Attorney Jennifer, what do we need to do? First, document all the pressure you're suffering, every visit, every threat, every irregularity discovered by the inspectors. Second, investigate the consortium structure more deeply. Third, identify other owners in the same situation. The plan made sense and offered real hope of victory. And the risks? There are risks. They could intensify the pressure, create more bureaucratic problems, even sue you for defamation. But if we have solid evidence, we can defend ourselves. Grace looked at William, who nodded almost imperceptibly. We accept your help. Great. Let's start by organizing everything you've already discovered. Grace showed the dossier she had compiled with information about the consortium. The attorney was impressed with the level of detail. Excellent work. With this information, I can begin the legal investigation. The attorney's presence brought new energy to the fight. Finally, they had someone with technical knowledge to face the consortium on equal footing. But 2 days later, Raymond showed up at the property, furious. William, you hired an attorney. This is a declaration of war. Raymond, you're the one who declared war when you forged my signature and tried to steal my property. Steal? I offered a legal solution for everyone. A solution based on false documents. Listen carefully. Raymond's voice became dangerously low. You don't know who you're dealing with. The consortium has unlimited resources and contacts at every level. A little family of settlers and an attorney won't be able to stop us. Maybe not, Grace replied, surprising herself with her courage, but we're going to try. Grace, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. Your family will pay dearly for this stubbornness. Are you threatening my family? William stepped closer, intimidating. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm warning you about the consequences of your choices. Raymond left but made it clear the war had escalated to a new level. That night, William suggested security measures. Perhaps it would be prudent to install some cameras around the property and always keep someone awake at night. Do you think they might try something violent? I don't know, but I'd rather be safe. The idea of violence terrified Grace, especially thinking of the children. But backing down now would mean forever accepting that people like Raymond could take advantage of the weak. Brandon offered to help with the night watch, showing a maturity that pained Grace's heart. At 12 years old, the boy was already thinking like an adult responsible for the family's safety. Brandon, that's not your responsibility. Mum, we're a family. We all have responsibilities. Her son's determination strengthened her. If a child could be brave, she could be too. A week later, the first good news came through Attorney Jennifer. She had obtained important information about the consortium. I discovered the company is being investigated by the public prosecutor's office in other states for similar practices. We have legal precedents for our case. Does that mean we'll win? It means we have a real chance. But they will counterattack. Prepare for more pressure. The counterattack came in the form of an eviction lawsuit based on alleged irregularities in the property's documentation. The consortium claimed to have prior rights to the land. How is that possible? Asked Grace. They fabricated backdated documents, the attorney explained. It's a common but illegal tactic. We can challenge it, but it will take time. How much time do we have before the eviction? 30 days, but I can get an injunction to suspend the order. The tension was affecting the whole family. Emily started having nightmares. Tyler became quieter, and even Noah seemed to feel the heavy atmosphere in the house. Maybe we should accept their offer, Grace suggested one particularly difficult morning. Mom, Brandon approached. Remember when Dad used to say some battles are worth fighting even when the odds are small? I remember. This is one of those battles. If we give up now, other families will go through the same thing we did. The wisdom of her 12-year-old son shamed Grace. He was right. It wasn't just about them, but about justice and dignity. You're right. We'll keep fighting. That afternoon, attorney Jennifer Collins brought a surprise that would change the course of the battle. I've made contact with an investigative journalist interested in your story. If he publishes a report, public opinion pressure could help us. Won't it make our situation worse? It might worsen temporarily, but it could also bring protection. Crimes against families in the media get much more attention from the authorities. William agreed with the strategy. It's a risk worth taking. The journalist, Michael Anderson, arrived 2 days later. He was a man around 40, experienced in exposing rural corruption. This story has all the elements of a major scandal, he said after hearing the details. Document forgery, illegal pressure, possible corruption in public works. Will you publish it? I will, but I need a bit more evidence. Could any of you record a conversation with Raymond or the consortium representatives? The idea was risky, but offered a chance to get definitive proof. I can try, Grace offered. I can call Raymond saying I want to renegotiate. Too dangerous, William objected. If they find out it's a trap, it's our best chance to get evidence. After much debate, they decided to try. The journalist provided a small, discreet recorder, and Grace called Raymond. Raymond, it's Grace. I want to talk about your proposal. Changed your mind? Maybe, but I need better guarantees. What kind of guarantees? I want to better understand your project. Why do you want this region so much? There was a pause before Raymond answered. Can you come to my office tomorrow? We can talk better in person. I'd prefer at the property, so the children aren't left alone. All right. Tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon. The call ended, and everyone was anxious. If they could record a confession from Raymond about the illegal methods, they would have enough evidence to defeat him. The next day, Grace prepared carefully. The recorder was hidden in her purse, and William positioned himself close enough to intervene if necessary, but far enough not to arouse suspicion. Raymond arrived punctually, but brought company. One of the suited men who had appeared before accompanied him. Grace, this is Mr. Richard, the project coordinator. He'll explain our proposal better. Mr. Richard was an elegant man, with a soft-spoken and convincing manner. Mrs. Grace, we understand your initial resistance. Change always causes fear. But I can assure you our project will bring development and prosperity to the entire region. What kind of project? A high-end tourist residential complex, hotels, condominiums, a convention center. We'll transform this region into a tourism powerhouse. And why do you specifically need these properties? Strategic location. We're on the route of the new highway with easy access to Washington, D.C. and proximity to natural attractions. Grace tried to ask questions that would lead them to confess illegal methods. And if some owners don't want to sell? Well, there are ways to convince people about the benefits of development. Mr. Richard smiled coldly. What ways? Sometimes it's necessary to demonstrate that resisting progress can be complicated. It was a veiled confession, but perhaps not clear enough for legal use. Complicated how? Raymond intervened, sensing that Mr. Richard was talking too much. Grace, let's get straight to the point. Do you accept our proposal or not? I still have doubts about the legality of all this. Legality? Mr. Richard laughed. Ma'am, we are the law in this region. We have contacts in all government spheres, judges, mayors, congressmen. Who do you think would win in a legal dispute? It was exactly what they needed, a clear confession that they used political influence and intimidation. But what if the press takes an interest in the story? The local press is under control, and the national press doesn't care about rural problems in Kansas. Raymond seemed bothered by Mr. Richard's frankness. Richard, perhaps we should... Relax, Raymond. Mrs. Grace is an intelligent woman. She understands how things work. And if I don't accept the proposal? Mr. Richard stepped closer, intimidating. Then your children might have difficulties at school. Your access to medical services could become complicated. Inspections might find non-existent problems on the property. Do you understand how things work? Are you threatening me? I'm explaining reality. You can call it whatever you want. Grace had enough material. She needed to end the conversation before they discovered the recorder. I'll think about the proposal and give you an answer in a few days. Don't take too long. Our patience has limits. After they left, Grace and William listened to the recording. It was devastating. Mr. Richard had confessed to using political influence, intimidation, control of the local media, and direct threats. "This is pure gold," celebrated the journalist when he heard the recording. "With this, I can write a report that will bring down the whole scheme." "When will it be published?" "Sunday on the front page." Headline: The Empire of Intimidation: How a Consortium Uses Politics and Fear to Steal Land in Kansas. The publication would be the turning point in the battle, but also the moment of greatest danger. When the report came out, the consortium would know they had lost control of the situation. "We need to prepare for retaliation," warned attorney Jennifer Collins. "They will try to discredit you, create legal problems, maybe even more direct threats." "And how do we protect ourselves?" "By keeping everything documented, avoiding being alone, and trusting that public exposure will force them to back down." The weekend passed in almost unbearable tension. Grace could barely sleep, imagining the consequences of the report. On Sunday morning, Michael called excitedly. "The report is causing an uproar. The newspaper's website crashed from so many visits. Politicians are taking positions. The public prosecutor's office announced an investigation, and other outlets want to interview you." Victory seemed near, but the consortium's reaction was swift and furious. That afternoon, a caravan of cars arrived at the property. Raymond, Mr. Richard, and 5 other men got out of the vehicles. William approached, brave but cautious. "What do you want?" "We want to talk to Mrs. Grace about the lie she spread in the press," said Mr. Richard, visibly upset. "A lie? Everything that was published is based on authentic recordings." "Illegal recordings! You recorded us without authorization!" Grace came out of the house, followed by her children who hid behind her. "The recordings were made on my property, with people who came to intimidate me. Perfectly legal." "Your property?" Mr. Richard laughed bitterly. "Ma'am, starting Monday you won't have any property. We will file lawsuits that will leave you on the street faster than you can imagine." "You can try." William stepped between the men and the family. "But now the story is public. Anything that happens to us will be investigated." "You don't know who you're messing with," threatened one of the men who had remained silent. "We know exactly," replied Grace, surprising everyone with her courage. "We're dealing with criminals who take advantage of vulnerable families, and now the entire state of Kansas knows it too." The tension in the air was palpable. For a moment it seemed the situation would turn violent, but then the sound of approaching cars was heard. It was journalists. 3 vehicles with reporting teams arrived at the property, alerted by Michael about the possible confrontation. The presence of the media completely changed the dynamic. Mr. Richard and his men found themselves surrounded by cameras and reporters asking uncomfortable questions. "Mr. Richard, do you confirm the statements from the recording? What is your response to the intimidation accusations? Is it true that the consortium uses political influence to pressure small landowners?" No comment. Mr. Richard tried to reach his car, but the reporters followed him. "Raymond, did you falsify documents to take possession of this property?" "This is a setup," Raymond shouted before getting into the car. The caravan left under the spotlight of the cameras, visibly defeated. "Grace, how does it feel to be the symbol of resistance against land grabbing in Kansas?" asked a reporter. The question caught her by surprise. A symbol? She was just a mother trying to protect her children. "I don't consider myself a symbol of anything. I just wanted a safe place to raise my children. If our struggle inspires other families to resist intimidation, I'm happy." The sincere answer was perfect for the cameras. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. In the following days, the story gained national attention. Grace and William were invited to television programs. The property received hundreds of supportive visitors, and politicians began to take a stance on the case. The public prosecutor's office filed a civil action against the consortium, seeking to annul all property transfers obtained by illegal methods. The federal police opened an investigation into the corruption scheme. "You've won," announced attorney Jennifer Collins on a Thursday afternoon. "The consortium has filed for a settlement. They want to end everything without admitting guilt but offering substantial compensation. What kind of compensation? For you, 500,000 rees for moral and material damages. For other landowners who were harmed, amounts proportional to the losses suffered. The victory was complete, but Grace felt strangely empty. Attorney, does this mean we'll have to leave the property? Not necessarily. William keeps the property, and you can continue with the partnership agreement you made. William, do you still want our partnership? After all we've been through, we bring a lot of trouble. Grace, William smiled. You didn't bring trouble. You brought courage. Alone, I would never have faced the consortium. Together, we managed to defeat a scheme that was harming the entire region. And now we build the life we dreamed of. With the compensation, you can invest in the property, buy equipment, improve the house. We can form a real cooperative. The prospect was exciting. With the compensation funds, they could transform the property into a prosperous agricultural business, providing financial security for both families. 2 weeks later, on a sunny Saturday morning, Grace was in the kitchen preparing coffee when Brandon approached. Mom, remember when we arrived here and I said I had a bad feeling? I remember. You were right about Raymond. I was wrong about one thing. I thought this place would be dangerous for our family, but actually it was here that we truly became a family. Grace looked out the window and saw Emily and Tyler playing in the yard while Noah slept in William's lap as he told stories on the porch. It was the picture of peace she had dreamed of when she accepted Raymond's offer. Brandon, sometimes the best gifts come, disguised as problems. How so? If Raymond had been honest from the start, we would never have met William. We would never have faced our fears. We would never have discovered we are stronger than we imagined. So, you're happy we were tricked? I'm happy with what we became because of it. 6 months later, the property was unrecognizable. With the settlement money and a lot of hard work, they had built modern greenhouses, installed an irrigation system, and diversified their production. They sold organic vegetables to supermarkets in Washington, D.C., and handmade goods to the region's growing rural tourism. William had officially become the children's godfather, filling the paternal void Daniel had left, not as a replacement, but as a new father figure who brought his own unique qualities. The Landowners Association was thriving, offering legal and technical support to small producers throughout the region. Grace had become the association's president, using her experience fighting the consortium to help other families. The case had set an important legal precedent in combating land fraud, and Grace's story was studied in agricultural law courses as an example of successful resistance. One Sunday afternoon, exactly 1 year after they arrived at the property, the family gathered in the barn where it all began. The place now housed modern equipment and products ready for sale, a symbol of the transformation they had achieved. "Mom," said Emily, now 9 years old and in charge of the property's chicken coop, "do you regret accepting Raymond's offer?" "Never," Grace answered without hesitation. "That offer brought us home, even knowing it was a lie. The best truths sometimes start with lies we are forced to uncover." William approached, carrying a carved wooden plaque. "I have a gift for you." The plaque read, "Mitchell Anderson family, united we are stronger." Below, there was space for 2 dates, their arrival at the property and the victory against the consortium. "William, this family is real," said Brandon, now 13 and William's right-hand man in managing the property. "It always was, from the first day you set foot here." Grace hung the plaque at the barn entrance, looking at the spot where she had found the hidden equipment that started the whole investigation. If not for her curiosity that first day, they might never have uncovered Raymond's scheme. "You know what I learned," she said, hugging her children. "Sometimes God takes us on winding roads to lead us to the right places. And sometimes," William added, "the right people are waiting for us in those places even without us knowing." The property that had started as a trap had become a home. The family that had arrived desperate was now prosperous and united. The man who seemed like a generous stranger had turned out to be the father and grandfather the children needed. And it had all started with a desperate widow accepting an abandoned ranch as payment for a non-existent debt. But by walking into the barn that first day and discovering that not everything was as it seemed, Grace had started a journey that would change not only her life, but the entire community around her. The barn that once held secrets now held dreams fulfilled. And the woman who had arrived fleeing poverty was now proof that courage and determination can turn the worst situations into the best opportunities. On the barn wall, next to the new family plaque, Grace kept framed the first photo they took together on the day William proposed the partnership. 5 frightened yet hopeful people, not knowing they were at the beginning of the greatest adventure of their lives. Now, a year later, they were 5 confident and accomplished individuals, owners of one of the most prosperous rural cooperatives in the region, respected in the community, and most importantly, genuinely happy. The abandoned ranch had fulfilled its promise. Not in the way Raymond had planned, but in the way fate had reserved for a family that deserved a second chance. As the sun set over the Kansas prairie, painting the sky gold, Grace watched her children playing in the backyard that was now truly theirs. Noah, already 3 years old, was chasing the chickens. Emily and Tyler were competing to see who could pick the most tomatoes. Brandon was seriously discussing property expansion plans with William. It was the family she had always dreamed of, in a place she never imagined she would find, built on a foundation of truth that had emerged from lies and deceit. Sometimes, Grace reflected, the best destinies are those we find when we are lost, and the best families are those we build with people life places in our path when we least expect it. The barn that had revealed the first secrets continued to hold its treasures, but now they were real treasures, the prosperous future of a family that had learned that together they can face any challenge and build any dream. And so the property that began as a trap became a home, the family that arrived broken became prosperous, and the woman who accepted a poisoned gift discovered that sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in paper we cannot recognize right away. The story of Grace Mitchell had become legend in the region, the widow who defeated a corrupt consortium and built a new life upon the ruins of her enemies' plans. But to her, it was just the story of a mother who did what any mother would do, protected her children and fought for a better future. In the barn where it all began, a new, smaller sign complemented the family's sign. Here, our true life began. And below, in smaller letters, sometimes you have to get lost to truly find yourself. End of story. Now tell us, what did you think of Grace's story and her fight against injustice? Do you believe a family can really defeat such a powerful scheme through courage and unity? Leave your opinion in the comments and share if you know of similar situations. Don't forget to leave a like if the story touched your heart, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that show the power of human determination.